This is Ag Matters PM from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, brought to you by the Iowa Soybean Association. Your daily recap of the information that affects Iowa's farmers, producers, and consumers, right here in the heart of the heartland. With reports from our award-winning broadcast team of Dustin Hoffman and Riley Smith. Now, from the IARN studios in Des Moines, here's Dustin Hoffman.
Well, good day, everybody, and welcome to Ag Matters PM from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. I'm Dustin Hoffman. Today is Wednesday, June the 22nd, 2022. Thanks for joining us. Coming up in today's show, we will talk with Iowa Pork Producers Association President Kevin Rasmussen. I caught up with him at the World Pork Expo earlier this month. We'll talk about how things are going here for producers in the state. We'll also have a rundown of that ag weather outlook. But first, let's start with the markets. It's time now for the Ag Matters PM Closing Market Summary, your source for market analysis and settlement prices from the day's trade in Chicago, courtesy of the folks at agmarket.net. We're at the end of another trading day here on Wednesday, and we turn to Jim McCormick of agmarket.net. You know, Jim, we had a rough start to the week. How did things shape up today?
Well, we started the week on kind of a negative note, and for the most part, it continued that negativity, led by the bean complex today. The beans saw pressure, old crop, new crop, all the way across the board. Bean oil is getting hit really, really hard. Palm oil is down. It's pretty much wiped out most of the year's gains. That's bleeding into bean oil, which is putting pressure in the bean market. Technically, the beans took out all sorts of uptrend lines in the 100-day moving average, which accelerated the technical selling. So the bean markets are under pressure. Corn market saw a little bit of a kind of a differential between old crop and new crop. The July corn caught a bid all day long, as end users are kind of bidding up to get the last of the grain out of the farmers' hands before delivery of the July contract. New crop was under pressure due to the weather still looking relatively moderate, Dustin. You know, they're looking for rain, not a lot of rain, but still not a lot of heat the next week, 10 days, and that continues to drain some weather premium out of the market. The wheat market saw strength most of the session, then kind of gave it all back late in the session, as there's still harvest pressure bleeding into that market, as well as some optimism. I think it's optimism that shouldn't be there, but optimism maybe that a deal can be done to get some grain corridors open to allow some of the wheat and other products out of the Ukraine.
You know, when we talked this morning, we said it's almost like a perfect storm brewing. I mean, all of it could happen or none of it could happen, or just some combination that it really could send the market so one way or the other in a big swing.
Well, there's no doubt about it. I mean, today the market definitely had a little bit of risk-off feel for it, but there's really three things I think the producers need to be keeping an eye on out there that's really going to affect the markets in the near term. You know, specifically the Ukraine, can we get any corridors out of that grain, out of that country? I think that is probably the least likely a thing to happen, but we got to keep an eye on it. Weather definitely could turn on a dime. We went home into the past three-day weekend expecting a hot, dry forecast. We came out of it kind of a cool, dry forecast. We do have a three-day weekend coming up here, not this upcoming weekend, but the weekend after. We have the 4th of July weekend, three-day holiday. So that could flip. We need to keep an eye on that. And the other thing we do need to just kind of keep an eye on in the broader pictures is the macro economy. The Fed continues to raise interest rates. They're going to have to raise interest rates as they try to tame inflation. The reality is when they do that, that is negative commodities. A lot of spec money came into our markets on the idea, I need to buy commodities as an inflation hedge. If the Fed continues to pound the hammer to beat down inflation, then you're really telling these speculators who dove into this market on the inflation play, why stay with that trade? So that could also add a negativity to the market as some of these spectators move away from the inflation play. So we need to keep an eye on this. We think in the long run, we're putting a multiple year high in. You know, can we get one more surge? Whether the next 2 or 3 weeks is probably going to determine that fact.
And of course, you know, we'll have that June 30th report coming out as well, get some more numbers figured out. What are you thinking we're going to see in that next week?
I mean, right now, I think our early guess is we're probably going to see a few more bean acres. Corn acres a little bit divided. I think maybe a slight uptick in corn acres, maybe 1 million more acres of beans potentially. I think in the really big picture, it's not going to be anything earth-shattering at this point in time. I think the real key is going to be the weather. If you look at the balance sheet the government's using right now, they're using a relatively aggressive balance sheet yield number, 177 for corn. That would tie the best crop ever. When you talk to producers in the Midwest right now, they're not very comfortable thinking we can get a 177 yield. So even if you picked up a slightly, a few more, let's say a few 100,000 acres of corn, you still got to have that 177 to meet demand. If you drop that yield down to 172 due to kind of some weather issues, all of a sudden you're producing less than you're consuming. and then it becomes a little bit more of a rationing, price rationing issue for the market.
So what about on the livestock side of things, Jim? What kind of data did we have there in the cattle and the hogs?
They were under pressure for the most part. After running up a little bit, they're a little bit overbought. I think the market is definitely concerned about inflation kind of taming the demand for it. The hog market weights are coming down a little bit, which is kind of good to see. But I think technically it's a little bit, they've kind of hit some chart resistance. They just haven't been able to break through it. Hopefully we see some good consumer demand going into the 4th of July weekend to propel the market higher. But right now it's more of a sideways chop.
All right. Well, a lot of things to worry about, or not worry about, but be concerned about and keep your eyes on if you've got that marketing plan. And if they want to look at some options due to what's going on right now, how do they get in touch with agmarket.net?
Go to agmarket.net or go to 844-424-6758 to give us a call.
All right, Jim. Well, thanks so much for the information. And hopefully when we talk again next week, things will be looking up a little bit.
Let's hope so. Thank you.
That again was Jim McCormick of agmarket.net. Let's take a look at those closing numbers from the folks at Bar Chart. July corn was up 7 1/4 at $7.68 even. December down 7 3/4 at $6.93 3/4. July beans down 28 1/4 at $16.52 3/4. August down 34 1/2 at $15.64. November new crop down 34 at $14.76 1/2. Soy meal was down 60 cents at $4.15.30. Soy oil down $2.79 at $68.88. Chicago wheat up 1 1/2 at $9.88 3/4. Minneapolis down 12 1/4 at $11.05 3/4. Kansas wheat down 2 1/2 at $10.45 3/4. Oats down 19 1/2 at $5.84 1/2. August live cattle down $1.32 at $134.92. August feeders down $2.15 at $173.15. Lean hogs down 87 cents at $111.85. Pork cutouts down $1.10 at $114.05. Class 3 milk down 2 cents at $24.29. And that's been a check of your ag market recap. We're going to take a short break here from our sponsor, the Iowa Soybean Association and the Soy Checkoff. When we come back, I had a chance to talk with Iowa Pork Producers Association President Kevin Rasmussen while we were at the World Pork Expo. We'll have comments from him on Ag Matters PM.
Iowa Soybean Association is driven to deliver for Iowa's 40,000 soybean farmers. We're proud to provide objective agronomic research, a helping hand with soil and water stewardship, and timely industry news powered by the Soybean Checkoff. Learn more at iasoybeans.com.
Welcome back to AM/PM from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. I'm Dustin Huffman. Well, earlier this month, we held World Pork Expo in Des Moines, a great time for producers from all over the world to get together and talk about the industry. And I had a chance to talk with Iowa Pork Producers Association President Kevin Rasmussen, and he gave us this update as to how things are going in the state. All right, we're talking right now with Kevin Rasmussen of the Iowa Pork Producers Association. Kevin, thanks for taking the time to visit with us here today.
You are very, very welcome. So we as pork producers are very excited to be here at the World Pork Expo here in Des Moines at the fairgrounds. This is a place where pork producers and business entities come together and share ideas, share new innovations, and try to be better as pork producers, putting a wholesome food product on the plates of all Americans and people all over the world. So one of the cool things about this is, in some of the past questions I've had, visiting with people, they want to know, so how are we doing in the environmental impact and stuff like that, sustainability and reducing our carbon footprint. And quite honestly, the fastest way to reduce your carbon footprint is to increase productivity and use less resources while increasing our productivity. And as you walk through the fairgrounds today at World Pork Expo, you're going to see many, many different new technologies and new equipment to help us increase productivity and be more efficient and reduce our carbon footprint.
And as long as we're talking about that sustainability issue, I mean, how can producers do a better job of maybe communicating with the people that are, the consumers out there as to what's going on? Because sometimes people get the wrong idea of what we're doing out there.
So you kind of hit on one of my hot buttons is, we all as producers, every one of us needs to have our elevator speech ready. We need to be able to tell our story, what we do and why we do it and what we do really, really well. Because if we don't tell our story to the general public, somebody else is going to tell it for us, and they're going to tell it the way they want it to be heard, not maybe the way it really is. Producers today that are in pork production do a really, really good job of efficiently producing the product.
And so when we're looking at things going on in Iowa, what are the concerns that, and maybe even some of the things that Iowa producers can be proud of here as we celebrate at World Pork Expo?
Well, we are the #1 pork producing state in the nation, and we produce a lot of high quality product and do a really good job of it, and that's something to be proud of. We can be proud of as an Iowa Pork Producers Association that the amount of resources that we put into foreign animal disease awareness and trying to keep foreign animal disease away and out of our country, and also being prepared in case or when it does come so that we can get back to operations, normal operations, more quickly.
All right, and as we look at also marketing and things like that, now obviously the average Iowa farmer is not worried about the market. They obviously want to make sure that their product is going out to where it's going to make the most money, have the most return on investment. But what are we seeing for that awareness for making sure that we're marketing those Iowa pork products out there around the globe?
Well, okay, so Iowa pork producers invest in trade missions with the Iowa Economic Development Associations, and so this past March we went to Mexico and did a trade mission to Mexico. Those producers that went along in that trade mission had an excellent report back to the board of the effectiveness it was communicating what we do here in Iowa to produce a high quality product. We have 2 more trade missions. Well, 1 more trade mission planned for this year and another one followed up next year. It's always if we can actually follow through on those trade missions, but if we don't have them planned and don't have them scheduled in the budget, then there's no way really that we're going to carry through with them.
And while we're here, we're seeing the latest in innovation, seeing the latest things coming down the pipeline that we're going to be seeing probably deployed in barns very soon around the state. But we're also talking about education and being able to know what we're talking about and understand why we're making some of these changes is important. And what can you say to producers that maybe don't come to an event like this? What are they missing out on?
Well, the days of when I was a kid, you'd go do the chores for the neighbor, those days are gone. We need to be, our employees that take care of our animals and then run our high-tech barns need to be fully trained and understand how to make that minor repair in that barn, how to identify an animal and what to do when an animal needs treatment. And we just need to be highly trained, and some of those training opportunities are here today and tomorrow at World Pork Expo, and it's your choice as a producer if you would like to come and attend those free seminars.
It was also interesting how you made the statement there that gone are the days where you just do the neighbor's chores. I mean, also talking to some producers around here, they're century farms, they're 150-year farms. You don't stay in business that long if you're not willing to make changes and adapt to the way the market is going. And someone told me, some people long for the good old days, like when we still had open cab tractors and no shock absorbers on the seats. I mean, you've got to be able to make some changes if you're going to be successful later on in the business and keep the farm viable.
Absolutely, absolutely. If you're still in agriculture and have been in agriculture for the last 100 years or 125 years, because we have a lot we have some heritage farms in this state and we have some century farms in this state, and those people have seen lots of change. I know my dad said when he got his first aged farmall, and he was waxing the hood on it, and he thought he'd never have a tractor that he couldn't see over the top of it. My dad was 5'10". Today we have tractors that he could walk under the engine in. I mean, we have huge equipment today. Equipment has changed, practices have changed. We've become much, much more efficient with those changes, but it's all a management philosophy. I mean, we can still farm today with that tractor without a cab, and you can be a viable agricultural production entity if that's the way you choose to farm. It's just the choices that we make need to fit the farming operations and your decisions that your decisions you make.
So obviously, as we get ready to wrap up here, Kevin, you get to talk to people and share experiences with people who are pork producers all around the world, learn about innovation. What is that information, that message that you can now turn around and give to the members of the Iowa Pork Producers Association here after an event like this?
So I had an opportunity to attend the Manitoba's state or provincial Pork Producers Association, their annual meeting. and we got to speak in front of them. And my story was, we have to tell our story, because if you don't tell it, somebody else will. And that's still my story when I come back, and relay that message back to Iowa producers, that, you know, we're all producers, we all produce a high quality product, and we want to hear each other's stories. We want to hear everybody else's success stories and where they learned and how they could be better and what works and what doesn't work. Because just because the salesman tells us it's going to work, there's nothing like on-farm experience and producers knowing this is what works, and we're very willing to share all of our production practices with one another.
All right, well, Kevin, I thank you so much for taking time to visit with us today.
And you are very welcome.
That again was Iowa Pork Producers Association President Kevin Rasmussen here on Ag Matters PM. Let's run down that weather. Well, it was a bright, sunshiny day here in Des Moines, just a few scattered clouds here and there, as we are technically cooler, as temps are only hanging around 90 degrees after yesterday really having some sweltering heat right in the middle of the afternoon. How long is this cool off going to last? Well, let's see what the National Weather Service has in store for the next 24 hours. A day you almost didn't mind being outside here today, as we saw that sunshine out there, maybe just a trace of a cloud or two, but temps a little cooler than what they have been. We saw highs from the upper 80s to around 90, so not much of a change here throughout the state. Now tonight, look for mostly clear skies, and temps will be in the low to mid 60s, and then tomorrow almost a carbon copy, as we said, of today. Going to see those temps drop in a few places, maybe 85 to 90, and mostly sunny skies, and those cooler temps will persist. There will be a slight chance of a thunderstorm in the afternoon to the southwest, and those chances could increase across the state as the evening progresses, but we'll keep an eye on that for tomorrow. Today's affiliate weather map looks a lot like yesterday. Cherokee sunny and 89. Shenandoah partly cloudy, a slight chance of an afternoon thunderstorm at 85. Des Moines and Waterloo both sunny and 90. In fact, Clinton sunny and 90 as well. Albion will see sunny skies and a high of 89. For more detailed forecasts in your area, tune to your local Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network affiliate. And that's been your Ag Weather Outlook. And with that, we're at the end of this episode of Ag Matters PM. We thank you for joining us. You can find all our content online at iowaagnet.com. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, and you can find our video content as well as past episodes of AM PM on our YouTube channel. So don't forget to like and subscribe to get those notifications when we post new videos. From the IARN studios in Des Moines, I'm Dustin Huffman for Riley Smith and Avery Haskell. We thank you for watching. This has been Ag Matters PM.